Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, to begin with, I would like to invite the Chair of Organizing Committee to deliver a welcome address. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Putu Indah Rahmawati, MBs PhD.
Om Swastiastu. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Namo Buddhaya, Salam, may be peace with us today. Good morning. We'd like to welcome you to the 5th Asian Education Symposium 2020. First of all, let us begin by expressing our gratitude to the Almighty God. For all His grace, we are able to assemble here in this precious occasion. We would like to express our gratitude to the Honorable Chairman of the Senate, the Honorable Rector of Undixa, the Honorable all the Vice Rector of Undixa, all the Head of Bureau of Academic, Student Planning and Corporation Affairs, the Head of Bureau of Financial Affairs, Head of the Research and Community Center of Undixa, Head of the Center of Learning and Quality Assurance Development. Let me also acknowledge the presence of our Deans of Faculty in Universitas Pendidikan Undixa, Head of Department of Postgraduate Program, Head of Department of Math and Natural Science in Postgraduate Program, Board of Director of Postgraduate Program and IS Consortium member, the Honorable Professor Dr. Sihabuddin MPD, Director of Postgraduate Universitas Pendidikan Indonesia, Professor Dr. Anna Permanasari, Vice Director of Academic for Postgraduate Universitas Pendidikan Indonesia. Also, let me extend our warm welcome to our distinguished keynote speaker, the Honorable Professor Dr. Lynn Parker, Dr. Phil Desi Sriwahyuni, and Professor Hiroyuki Miyake. The Honorable keynote speakers, distinguished guests, delegates, presenter, committee, participants of the conference. The 5th Asian Education Symposium is an international conference dedicated to advancement of theory and practices in education. AIS 2020 was organized by Universitas Pendidikan Indonesia, UPI, in collaboration with Universitas Pendidikan Ganesha, Universitas Negeri Manado, Universitas Negeri Sunan Gunung Jati Bandung, Universitas Mataram, Universitas Pakuan, Universitas Surabaya, Universitas Negeri Semarang, Universitas Bengkulu, Universitas Kanjuruhan Malang, Universitas Islam Negeri Sultan Taha Saifuddin Jambi, Universitas Islam Negeri Raden Patah Palembang. Our theme for AIS 2020 is enhancing the quality of transdisciplinary education of Sustainable Development Goals. The aim of AIS is to provide the opportunity for academicians and professionals from various educational fields with a cross-disciplinary interest to bridge the knowledge, promote research esteem, and the evolution of learning progress. Through this conference, we expect the researchers all over the world are able to culminate reflection on how the education field answer the challenge of where the trends and the technology might lead. distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. The conference is attended by approximately 157 participants coming from all over different countries. We are proud to have outstanding keynote speaker, Professor Dr. Lynn Parker from Australia, Dr. Sri Wahyuni from Indonesia, and Professor Dr. Hiroyuki Uyake from Japan. Finally, high appreciation should be provided to the hardworking and solid committee member of the conference that include Bali team and the UPI team. We do hope this conference will become a medium for researchers, educators, and authors to build networking and mutual understanding so that there will be more collaborative research and collaborative publication in the future. That's all I can say for today. We do hope that you enjoy our conference. Thank you for your kind attention. Om Santi 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 Om. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Honorable speakers, colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, it's an honor now to invite the Vice Rector of Academic and Cooperations on behalf of the Rector of Undixa to give his opening remarks. Please welcome Dr. Rasben Dantes.
Om Swastiastu. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Selamat pagi, salam sejahtera buat kita semua. Good morning everyone. May peace be with all of us. First of all, let us extend our highest gratitude to the Almighty God for all His blessing and mercy so that all of us encounter each other in the 5th ASEAN Education Symposium 2020. Before delivering the opening speech, I would like to apologize to you that the Rector of Universitas Pendidikan Ganesha today is unable to present you to unforeseen circumstances. ASEAN Education Symposium 2020 is an international conference which is dedicated to the advance of theory and practice in education. The theme of today's conference is enhancing the quality of transdisciplinary education for sustainable development goal. This conference is a forum of researcher, education, academician, and also practitioner to share experience and knowledge in the field of education. ASEAN Education Symposium 2020 is organized by Universitas Pendidikan Indonesia in collaboration with other universities in Indonesia, such as Universitas Pendidikan Ganesha, Universitas Negeri Manado, Universitas Islam Negeri Sunan Gunung Jati Bandung, Universitas Mataram, Universitas Pakuan, Universitas Negeri Surabaya, Universitas Negeri Semarang, Universitas Pakuan, Universitas Kanjuruhan Malang, Universitas Islam Negeri Sultan Taha Saifuddin, Jambi, and Universitas Islam Negeri Raden Patah, Palembang. This international conference invite 3 keynote speakers with different expertise in education. They are Prof. Dr. Lynn Parker, University of Western Australia, Dr. Pil Desi Sri Wahyuni from Universitas Pendidikan Ganesha, and Professor Hiroyuki Miyake from University of Kitakyushu, Japan. I also would like to express my gratitude to all the committee that making this great opportunity and great conference international today. So it's a great opportunity for us, Universitas Pendidikan Ganesha, to be the host of ASEAN Education Symposium 2020 that we hold differently in the COVID-19 pandemic. All the conference we done through virtual platform. During the COVID-19 pandemic, we learned a lot through many meaningful experience. Since March 2020, we have been doing online learning with all the challenges and experience. The same goes to the implementation of the research and also the community service. We have made many changes to adapt the condition during the pandemic COVID-19. Dear academicians, it is obvious that the challenges facing our world nowadays are becoming more dynamic and also multifaceted. Thus, there is need of us to overcome any problem using multidisciplinary approach. Education is unquestionably multidimensional in nature. Therefore, any approach to address the issue pertinent to education must be taken to shift the conventional tradition in our profession. It is hoped that ASEAN Education Symposium 2020 can bring our diverse knowledge and perspective on the issue in education. To the education professional, it is our noble duty to provide realistic solution to any social challenges and to contribute to grow human resources so that they will be able to solve problems with multidisciplinary approach. And we hope that from ASEAN Education Symposium 2020, new idea and method in education will grow to make it possible to build stronger network for us. The Honorable ladies and gentlemen, even though this conference is conducted virtually, I believe that the content of this conference remain as important as if it were conducted face-to-face. Finally, I would like to thank you for your participation and support to 5th ASEAN Education Symposium. We wish you the most productive conference, and I hope this conference will be beneficial for all of us. God bless you. Om Santi, Santi, Santi Om. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Selamat pagi. Salam sejahtera buat kita semua.
Now we would like to invite the Vice Rectors of Academic and Corporations of Universitas Pendidikan Ganesha to open the symposium by beating the gong, accompanied by Professor Dr. I Gusti Putu Suharta as the Director of Postgraduate Program. And we would like to invite as well the Vice Director of Postgraduate Program, Professor Dr. Ide Bagus Putrayasa dan Dr. I Gusti Ngurah Pujawan.
The Honorable keynote speaker, guests, and all the participants, on behalf of Rector Universitas Pendidikan Ganesha, we open 5th ASEAN Education Symposium 2020 officially.
Ladies and gentlemen, the beating of the gong by the Vice Rector of Academic and Cooperation has officially marked the start of today's AES 2020. We are now continuing our meeting to the next agenda, that is to hear the keynote speeches which will be moderated by Professor Putu Artini. So without further ado, I would like to invite the moderator, Professor Putu Artini.
Good morning. Welcome to the plenary session of the Asian Education Symposium 2020. Let me introduce myself first of all. My name is Luh Putu Artini, affiliated to Universitas Pendidikan Ganesha, Bali, Indonesia. I'm truly honored to chair this plenary session with three great speakers, three great keynote speakers today. This plenary session will last for 3 hours. So we are going to have 3 presentations in a row, and it's one presentation will last for approximately 40 minutes. And at the end, we are going to have the Q&A, question and answer session, which lasts about 45 minutes. What is very interesting about this plenary session is that we are going to give away 5 souvenirs. We are going to give away 5 souvenirs to participants who participate in this activity, in this session, in question and answer sessions. So please participate in this question and answer later. Ladies and gentlemen, we are going to have 3 keynote speakers. I'm going to introduce the 3 keynote speakers. The first keynote speaker is Professor Lynn Parker. Professor Lynn Parker is the honorary professor at Australian National University. She just retired from the University of Western Australia this year. And she is not only an academician, not only a researcher, but she is an Indonesianist. She is truly the expert of Indonesia. And she has been in Indonesia many years of her career as an academician and researcher for doing research. And her research area, especially in youth, and then also women, gender education, environmental educations, and also character educations. So today she's going to present a very interesting topic on pedagogy on environmental education. So the real title of the presentation will be informed later. Our second speaker today is Dr. Desi Sri Wahyuni. She is a young academician of Universitas Pendidikan Ganesha. She just recently finished her PhD with a joint education between Universitas Negeri Yogyakarta and also a university in Germany. And right now she's affiliated in the Faculty of Technique and Vocations. And she's going to present a very interesting topic in relation to vocational educations. Our third speaker is Professor Hiroyuki Miyake from Japan. He is an expert in education for sustainable development. And he's also going to present a very interesting topic related to sustainable for education. Sorry, education for sustainable, yeah. Here, our topic, the theme of the conference, as you are all aware, is enhancing the quality of transdisciplinary education for sustainable development goals. So this topic represents our concern as academicians to take a part in the United Nations program. As we know that the United Nations global goals is to end poverty and protect the planet and ensure prosperity for everyone in 2030. And you may also be aware that education is the most strategic strategy. This is really the most strategic strategy to take part in the UN program to end poverty and also to protect the planet. As you can listen later on, that all the presentation for our keynote speaking today are very relevant to the program of the United Nations. Ladies and gentlemen, we are going to start with the first presentations. So the first presentation will be from Professor Lynn Parker. Just a little bit about her, a little bit more about her. Besides becoming the honorary professor now at the Australian National University, she's also still very active academicians and not only teaching, but also researching. And I would like to introduce some of the interesting work of Professor Lynn Parker that is very related to Indonesia. For that reason, she is also called as an Indonesianist. She wrote so many journal articles, I can't really count. There's so many and published in very reputable journals. But two of the books, which really truly about Indonesia, is environmental education in Indonesia, creating responsible citizen in the global South, which is published by Routledge. Another book is Adolescence in Contemporary Indonesia, also published by Routledge. Ladies and gentlemen, we are going to start with the presentation now. Please welcome Professor Lynn Parker. Professor Lynn, time is yours. Dear participants, probably there is a little bit of a technical problem. Hello, Professor Lin, how are you? Hello, Ibu Lin, how are you? Oh, I think you still have the mute microphone. Can you unmute, please, Ibu Lin? Please unmute the microphone. Yes.
Okay. Can you hear
Hello.
me now?
Oh, yes,
Oh,
perfectly.
good.
How are
Sorry,
you?
I had to be allowed to unmute by the host. I'm so
Oh,
sorry.
yeah.
Okay, now I'm going to try and share my screen, okay, with the PowerPoint. Fingers crossed.
Okay, while waiting, I just want to let you know a little bit more about Dr. Lin, Professor Lin. She speaks Bahasa Indonesia and Bahasa Bali very well. You can't believe it. Yeah, she has been in Bali for quite a long time for her research. And she is a very good language learner, I guess, because she can speak the level of Balinese language. Yeah. Okay. I think she is ready now.
Can you see my PowerPoint?
Not yet, Ibu Lin, unfortunately. Do you need help? Do you want somebody probably put the PowerPoint here and then you just read
That
from
might
there?
be the quickest. So I sent it to your organisers. It doesn't seem to be coming through. I don't know why. Do you want to try loading it from that side, from your end?
Okay. Okay. Can somebody play the PowerPoint from here? Bu Indah can help probably with the PowerPoint. Yeah, ladies and gentlemen, sometimes something like this when we do something using technology, but I think everything will be okay in a minute.
We'll get there. So Putu, is someone at your end trying to put on the PowerPoint at your end?
Yes, we are trying.
Yes, good. Thank you. So Putu, is someone at your end trying to put on the PowerPoint at your end?
Yes, yeah, it is on now. Can you see, Bolin?
So Putu, is someone at your end trying to put on the PowerPoint at your end?
Yes, yeah, it is on now. Can you see, Bolin?
I can see it now. Someone at your end trying to put on the PowerPoint at your end?
Yes, yeah, it is on now. Can you see, Bolin?
I can see it now. Someone at your end trying to put on the PowerPoint at your end?
Yes, yeah, it is on now. Can you see, Bolin? There is a problem that it is repetitive. Can somebody fix that? Because yeah, the phone is repetitive. On now, can you see, Bolin? There is a problem that it is repetitive.
Yes, I can see it. Would you like me to start now?
Yeah, the phone is repetitive. On now, can you see, Bolin? There is a problem that it is
Yes,
repetitive.
I can see it. Would you like me to start now?
Yeah, the phone is repetitive. On now, can you see, Bolin? There is a problem that it is repetitive.
I can see it. Would you like me to start now?
Yeah, the phone is repetitive. On now, can you see, Bolin? There is a problem that it is repetitive.
I can see it. Would you like me to start now?
Yeah, the phone is repetitive. On now, can you see, Bolin? There is a problem that it is repetitive.
I can see it. Would you like me to start now?
Yeah, the phone is repetitive.
Okay, I think we might be ready. We good? Putu, should I start now?
Can you please start, Bolin? It's ready.
Yes.
Thank
Okay, my apologies for the technological problems. I think we should expect such things, and it's fine. So good morning, everybody. And I would especially like to thank Dr. Putu Indah Rahmawati, the chair of this conference, AES 2020, and also Professor Putu Atini for inviting me to present this keynote at this conference. It's a shame we cannot all meet in person in Bali, but I think that this is a very admirable alternative, and I think it will be a very worthwhile event. So the theme of the conference is enhancing the quality of transdisciplinary education for the Sustainable Development Goals. And I have been asked to speak from the perspective of my research on environmental education. Next slide, please. The UN's Sustainable Development Goals are ambitious and they're very wide-ranging. But perhaps the most salient feature of them is how many are directly about the environment. There are 17 goals in total, and 7 of them are directly about the environment. They are number 6 on clean water and sanitation, number 7 on affordable and clean energy, number 11, sustainable cities and communities, number 12, responsible consumption and production, 13 on climate action, 14 life below water, and 15 life on land. And of course, none of these goals is a standalone silo. So for instance, number 2, zero hunger, requires there to be enough food, being produced for people to be able to live and for that food to be distributed to the poor and needy, the remote, those dislodged by war or climate change or unemployment. In many parts of the world, including in Indonesia, we know that there will be significant disruption to food security because of climate change. This has already begun and will only get worse. Number 16, peace, justice, and strong institutions, refers to environmental justice. And number 17, on partnerships for the goals, will entail partnerships to improve the environment. Education is goal number 4. It's called quality education. And education is acknowledged as a means for achieving the other 17 goals, with sustainability as a goal for education in Target 4.7. If you're interested in this goal, you can go to the Sustainable Development Goal website, and education is acknowledged as a means for achieving the other goals. And on the website, there's information about how to educate people about the Sustainable Development Goals. This website is listed in my references list at the end of the PowerPoint, and this PowerPoint can be distributed if you like. Most of the references, by the way, are open access, so you should be able to research them if you would like to. Next slide, please. So the topic of my talk today is pedagogies for education about the Sustainable Development Goals on the environment. And my talk is structured like this. First of all, the urgency of the problem. I will talk a little about the environment in Indonesia and provide some of the findings from our study of environmental education in schools in Indonesia. And then I want to introduce an example of a pedagogy that I think is suitable for education about the Sustainable Development Goals. It has a fancy name, critical eco-pedagogy, but I will explain it. And then I want this to be practical as well. So I've introduced a discussion of how critical eco-pedagogy might work in practice in interdisciplinary university teaching about the Sustainable Development Goals. Next slide, please. So, the urgency of the environmental problem. There are many references and reports that show that there is a global state of ecological decline underway that threatens the sustainability of not only human civilization, but also living systems as we know them on Earth. Next slide, please. So here is a quote from Elizabeth Colbert, who's written about this problem. She says, "It may seem impossible to imagine that a technologically advanced society could choose, in essence, to destroy itself, but that is what we are now in the process of doing." And in the time-honoured tradition of a picture being worth 1,000 words, we are sawing off the branch on which we sit, that is our natural environment. Next slide, please. So if human activities, especially economic systems, are not transformed, humankind is threatened. There needs to be unprecedented, rapid transformation of society, of social, political, cultural, and economic systems, and of course, our field, education. I have to admit that changing education alone cannot save the planet, but it is one important component of the global capitalist system that we need to transform. Next slide, please. But in educating young people, The sustainability discourse of the UN and other major international organisations, and the Sustainable Development Goals. They can seem too far away, too universalist, and limiting to young people. In effect, they can actually stifle local discourses that might challenge or contradict them. The sustainability discourse can become hegemonic, and a discourse of adults or of the authorities. So it is really important to make sustainability education non-universalist, youth-based, and locally relevant. Next slide, please. So first, a little bit of a survey of the environment in Indonesia. Some bad news. Indonesia is the third largest emitter of greenhouse gases in the world. It's the second worst plastics polluter in the world after China. Indonesia is experiencing massive loss of biodiversity. So species are going extinct. And there's massive destruction of natural resources. The one that most people know about is that there is serious air, land, and sea pollution. There is massive deforestation, and the cutting of forests causes flooding, erosion, landslides, climate change, and also loss of biodiversity. Next slide, please. So climate change, just to talk about one aspect, is going to have a severe negative impact in Indonesia. There will be increased water scarcity and crop failures. There will be increasingly unpredictable weather. This will make life very difficult for farmers, and there will be crop failures. There will be increased risk of floods and landslides. There is already destruction of coral reef systems and fisheries nurseries, for instance, in mangrove areas. There will be increased intensity of extreme weather events. And of course, sea level rise. And because Indonesia is an archipelago of islands, there will be threats to low-lying islands and coastal populations, such as Jakarta and many other areas along the north coast. So Indonesia will need much greater disaster awareness and adaptation education. It will need improved infrastructure as part of that adaptation. Indonesia will no longer be rice sufficient, self-sufficient, and will need to import a lot more food. Indonesia will urgently need to wean itself off carbon-based fuels and move to renewables, and will need to relocate huge numbers of people. Next slide, please. So more bad news is that there's a very unfortunate lack of environmental awareness and action in Indonesia. So at the national level, for instance, there's no green political parties. And usually as I follow the elections, even at local levels, it's not common for environmental issues to become electoral issues at elections. There is government rhetoric about the environment at national level, and there's a plethora of laws, but most of them are not effective. There's widespread ignorance among the population about the environment and the interconnections between human and natural systems. So for instance, a Pew survey asked, have you ever heard of the environmental problem of global warming? And this is when it's an international survey, so they asked the same question in lots of countries. And Indonesia was one of the most climate unaware countries in the world, with a considerable majority of the sample answering no, they were not aware of the problem of global warming. There is also widespread apathy about the environmental problems in Indonesia. So, for instance, with the waste problems that we do hear a lot more about now in social media and in government rhetoric, but nevertheless, on the ground and in schools, we hear that the idea that someone else will pick it up. And sometimes that someone else is the cleaner or the pembantu or the pemulu or the people, you know, who are employed as low-wage workers to do this work. But the effect of this is that people do not feel responsible themselves for their own waste. Another problem, I think, in Indonesia is a pervasive belief that Indonesia has a wealth of natural resources. And Indonesia does have an amazing wealth of natural resources. But there's little understanding that these are threatened and that they are finite. And that if they are left unexploited, they are incredibly valuable. So forests have value if you just leave them there. You don't need to cut them down to realise value on them. Next slide, please. So I've been doing research into environmental education in Indonesia, funded by an Australia Research Council grant. And as part of that project, I was working with a team of people in Indonesia. Some people were Indonesians, some people were Australians. There's even one person from the Czech Republic on the team at the moment. And one of my PhD students on the project was Kelsey Prabhawasir. And she and I, now Dr. Kelsey Prabhawasir, she and I wrote a book, and part of the book is based on her PhD thesis. So the book is called Environmental Education in Indonesia, Creating Responsible Citizens in the Global South, with a question mark at the end. But I want to point out that this book, although it's in English, I know that you can speak English, but it is available freely from Taylor and Francis' website. So you can access it for free. So I want to tell you a little bit about some of the findings from our study. Next slide, please. Okay, so some things, some positives now. I'm sorry about all the bad news before, but now we move to some positives. One is, these are things that you know, but they're worth pointing out and making explicit, I think. Indonesia has a nationwide education system and a common curriculum and good budgetary support, 20% of the budget for education. So this is a really good basis for doing environmental education that can be effective nationwide. Also, Indonesia has a culture that promotes education. So everybody thinks education is a good thing. Parents want their children to be educated. They want them to be better educated than they were, those sorts of things. In my research on young people, we found them to be extremely optimistic and also idealistic and to have huge potential as environmentalists. So we found that they could be really well motivated to work with NGOs or to do their own environmental work, usually in groups with clubs, environmental clubs or Adiwiyata program or such things. So another really great resource that we have. Indonesia has democracy. So if the Indonesian populace was well aware, hopefully that would have a good effect on the actions of the politicians. However, as I said, there's not yet a green political movement. And the democracy is, I think, becoming increasingly illiberal. Indonesia has a fairly free press. There are many, many environmental NGOs, as I'm sure you're all aware. There's also great potential for religious mobilization. So all of the great religions have the idea that human beings should be stewards of the environment, that they should be looking after the environment. And in many religions, it's seen as being kind of the human responsibility to look after the globe and the environment as part of religious duty. Next slide, please. Okay, so in our research in schools, which was in many parts of the countries, including Bali, we identified some problematic aspects of teaching or pedagogy and learning about the environment. One is a shame, really, is a misperception that teaching or learning about the environment requires specialist science knowledge. And we actually found that geography teachers, the geography curriculum was the one in school, at school level, that was doing the most about environmental education. And that's not highly scientific and technical. There's also a misperception that environmental education consists of knowledge about the environment rather than for the environment. The difference is really knowledge about is kind of scientific knowledge, you know, like what is the water cycle or what are the different species and that sort of thing. But knowledge for the environment is knowledge that tries to work for the environment, save the environment, preserve the environment, conserve the environment. So it's actually working for the environment. Another problem that we discovered is that knowledge tends to exist in the silos of the disciplines, such as, or subject groups, such as geology, biology, history, instead of being interdisciplinary. And that's actually what the topic, the theme for our conference is, and the Sustainable Development Goals indeed encourage interdisciplinary or transdisciplinary education. We also found there's a large gap between environmental knowledge and awareness on the one hand and pro-environmental behaviour on the other. This is a global problem. It happens all around the world. We know we should be good citizens, but we don't always act like good citizens. So this is nothing special to Indonesia, but it is still a problem. So today I want to suggest one type of pedagogy which is cross-disciplinary or interdisciplinary and suitable for use in university level education. And it's called critical eco-pedagogy. Next slide, please. So critical eco-pedagogy draws on sort of an amalgam of two approaches to education. And you've probably heard of the first one, which is critical pedagogy. I'm sure that many of you will be familiar with the work of Paulo Freire. He's a Brazilian education philosopher, really. And I know that many people in education in Indonesia know of his work. While Freire was talking about education in the post-colonial society of Brazil, his work on oppression and how education really just, well, can oppress people, doesn't have to, can oppress people, is relevant everywhere. He showed how education can reproduce inequality. So going to school benefits people who are already in power and prosperous. Going to good schools benefits the elite in society. Dropping out of school, as we all know, and going to poor quality schools helps to keep the oppressed in their oppressive or subordinate positions. The other approach to education is called eco-pedagogy and is the work of people such as Misiazek and Kahn and others. One definition that Misiazek gives is it's a critical environmental pedagogy that focuses on understanding the connections between social conflict and environmentally harmful acts carried out by humans. So in this definition, I want to say that the mention of social conflict does not necessarily or even mainly refer to violent conflict between groups of people. He's referring to significant inequalities and asymmetrical power relations, which historically oppress some groups and work to the advantage of the powerful. Misiazek opens the analysis to environmental harms. So basically, eco-pedagogy is the teaching and learning of connections between environmental and social problems. So it's really much more simple than perhaps that definition suggests. Next slide, please. So to put all this in written down words, critical ecopedagogy is an interdisciplinary pedagogy that aims to transform education and society in order to promote environmental sustainability and social and environmental justice. It is critical, so I like this word critical because that helps us to identify the power relations and the inequalities that oppress people and also cause environmental destruction. It identifies connections between environmental and social problems and aims to equip learners with the interdisciplinary knowledge, skills, and problem-solving capacities to transform social, economic, and political systems for the good of the environment. So the ultimate aim of critical ecopedagogy is global environmental and human health, diversity, and sustainability. Next slide, please. So in this pedagogy, there are three main tasks. So I've kind of tried to simplify this. First of all, to help learners identify environmental problems and their human causes. These are usually socioeconomic problems. So first of all, identify problems. Number two, to help learners envision an ideal future state and identify possible solutions to the problem in order to reach the ideal vision. And thirdly, to equip learners with ways to research, express, analyse, solve, or ameliorate problems. And I'll just expand on those one after another. Next slide, please. So the first task is to identify environmental problems and their causes. This usually means identifying interconnections between environmental problems and issues of social and economic justice. Now, problems can be those that are perceived by the people experiencing them themselves, or they might be problems which have been identified by scientists or experts. The main task is to identify the causes, and that includes the social power relations behind the environmental problems. And I'm going to give you some examples of these shortly. In general, students respond well to challenging real-world problems, but sometimes just be aware that if a real-world problem is overwhelming, they might reject it. Some problems will be real-world, but students will only be able to deal with them theoretically. That is, they'll become familiar with the problem, they'll start to understand it and so on, but they won't be able to actually solve the problem. These problems tend to be wicked problems. They're really big, complicated problems. Usually it's beyond the power of students to effect change. So I think it's a good idea to mix up small, soluble problems and really big problems, and of course, mix up problems with good news stories, perhaps news about positive initiatives, tales of inspirational heroes, and so on, so that the world is not just full of problems. Next slide, please. The second task was to envision the ideal future and identify possible solutions. So backcasting, this is just jargon really. That means that students are encouraged to envisage their ideal future and then work back from there. So backcasting is considered best practice in sustainability education. It consists of, quote, generating backwards from that ideal future to the present in order to strategize and to plan how it could be achieved. So this task, of course, is open-ended. There's not usually a single right answer. We all have different visions for the future. Sometimes people look backwards to a sort of golden past. Some people just sort of think, you know, the way it is now is fine. We just need to not get any worse, those sorts of things. It's good to remember that causes of problems often present the solutions. Sometimes, of course, there are many causes and manifestations of those causes. And so there are many solutions that are possible and many solutions that are needed. It must be accepted that some problems are so complex or so hot politically that they cannot be solved quickly or easily by students. Some problems might only be solvable at the local level because the wider infrastructure cannot be changed. So, for example, it's not uncommon in a school campus for students to sort waste into the different rubbish bins, so organic, maybe something for plastics, maybe some cardboard or something like that. And then the waste that really is going to go into landfill. So the students obediently do this sometimes, and then the garbage truck comes and all the rubbish in the different bins is pulled together again, reunited. So the sorting that the students have been done has been counterproductive, not only practically, but also psychologically for the students. So we might be able to do some problem solving at the local level of the campus at school, but not the wider local government level. It's also good to remember that there might be different timescales. So for instance, the local problem might be able to be solved first, but the community or local government problem might take time, and people have to learn to be patient. Next slide, please. So the third task is to equip learners with ways to research or express or analyse, solve or ameliorate problems. There are many ways to do this. I'm sure some of you are already involved in team teaching, but I would suggest that it's good to team teach among different disciplines. It can be quite challenging, I think, to mix up the hard sciences with the soft sciences or social sciences, if you like. You can do things like invite NGOs to work with you. You can go on excursions in a post-COVID vaccine world and have incursions. Group work, I think, works really well for these sorts of projects and problem-solving exercises. But group work requires preparation. You can't just set students a small group problem and tell them to go away and do it. There needs to be a lot of scaffolding for it. I would suggest that you use a mix of both individual responsibility and assessment, as well as group responsibility and assessment. We all know that some people will be more rudging than others and will do the bulk of the work. So we want to make sure that the people who do the work get the credit. Research projects, of course, are a great way for students to be looking at the environment and the kind of different transdisciplinary approaches that are going to be needed for the Sustainable Development Goals. Participatory action, and I'm going to give you a couple of examples of that shortly. Students can actually take on an environmental project. It might be something that's really quite political, like pressure a local government. It might be that they make a film or a blog, or they go on a demonstration in a COVID-safe way, of course. If you're more in the humanities, there's now a whole sort of genre of eco-fiction, for instance. There's eco-films, documentaries. So there's lots of ways in which we can use this eco-pedagogy. Next slide, please. So now I want to give some idea about more practical ways which we can do this. And I'm thinking here mostly of interdisciplinary university teaching about the Sustainable Development Goals. First of all, there's no one right way to do this, of course. You could start with one sustainable development goal, such as sustainable cities and communities or clean water and sanitation. And I'll be talking about two projects that involve these two. Or you could start with a problem that has been identified by students in answer to a teacher's question. Or you could start by setting students the project of finding the problem, first of all, that they're interested in. So in our research on environmental education in schools, we conducted a national survey of SMR students, and we asked students many questions, but 3 in particular. They are, what do you think is the most important environmental problem in this neighbourhood? Then what is the most important environmental problem nationwide? And then what is the most important environmental problem globally? And again, there's no right answer to these. Different people have different ideas. Most students answered that the problem of waste was the most important environmental problem at the local neighbourhood level. But in one private middle to upper middle class SMR in Jakarta, students identified flooding as the most important environmental problem for them. So I'm going to start with this one because it's a well-known problem around Indonesia. The students that we worked with in Jakarta identified it. For them, it was the most important problem. And there's published work available about the problem, the floods in Indonesia, in Jakarta. At that time, then Governor Ahok had undertaken some slum clearances along canals and rivers to get rid of people who lived along the rivers. Many students in this school thought that poor people were the cause of the flooding. They identified poor people who lived along rivers and canals as the cause of this major environmental problem, because they thought these people who have just come from the countryside, they squat in free land and they have no facilities, and so they just throw all their rubbish into the river and clog it up, and then it floods every wet season. So I'm going to talk about this problem for a bit. Next slide, please. So I'm sure you all know that this flooding in Jakarta happens every wet season, and it can turn Jakarta into a completely dysfunctional nightmare. Transport is completely disrupted, workplaces have to be closed, homes are flooded, there's lots of damage, dislocation. It's a huge cost every year. But some aspects of it are not obvious, and these were the ones that we were keen for students to research. And then, as I said, the students thought that the main cause of the floods were the people who lived in the slums, the kampong along the rivers. But with research, we could discover that it was much more complicated than this. Next slide, please. So, using critical eco-pedagogy, first of all, we would ask students to begin by envisaging the ideal future. What would it be like? And this could just be a group discussion in class. And obviously, not being flooded every year was a crucial part of this. Then we would encourage students to use online research and COVID-safe interviews to find out about the causes of the floods every year. The role of the lecturer or the teacher would be to facilitate, to provide support, to coordinate, to make suggestions. If there were field work, for example, in pairs or small groups, could be online or with social distancing, to invite NGOs along to come and talk to students. The projects should be a medium length because you want them to be reasonably in depth. So it might be for some weeks. And the facilitator, the lecturer, would need to arrange some sort of progress or check-in points along the way to make sure that projects are progressing and assess progress. The sorts of assessment could be criteria such as participation, as I said, could be individual or small group assessment. Criteria such as the student's initiative or their creativity, their critical thinking, their ability to connect different causes. This is systemic thinking. The results of their fieldwork, their ability to find and use appropriate source material, their ability to critically use sources and synthesize findings, and then finally the presentation of results to the group. Next slide, please. So students would discover multiple causes of flooding in Jakarta. First of all, the big one, upstream deforestation and overbuilding in the hinterland, in the upstream areas. Large amounts of water run off instead of being absorbed by the forests in the hills. Consequently, there's loss of topsoil and it runs off and sediments clogs up the canals and rivers. The floodplain is now covered in concrete, asphalt, buildings, roads, etc. And where it used to be covered in water-absorbing plants and mangrove swamps, now there's nowhere for the water to go but into the canals and rivers and then overflow them. So the unplanned growth of the population of Jakarta is one of the major problems. Next slide, please. The students would discover that indeed people do move onto empty land alongside rivers and canals. But then they would see that the lack of clean water supply and sanitation services means that people are forced to use the river water, which is already polluted, and they're also forced to excrete into the river and therefore create further pollution, and also buy water in plastic bottles, which they then throw into the river. So it's just a sort of vicious cycle. This creation of non-biodegradable waste, especially the plastic, and the clogging of the rivers, plus the pollution of the water, mean that it just gets more and more polluted and more flooding. So the lack of garbage collection by government means that the upstream and nearby inhabitants throw the waste into the river, and this causes clogging. The sinking of the land or subsidence. One reason for this is the groundwater pumping, and there's two main sorts. So there's deep aquifers, which are a long way underground, and the large companies and the big high-rises, they can pump these deep aquifers with really powerful pumps and get water up from the depths, nice clean water. But most of the people who only can afford shallow wells, they can only dig down a small way, and the water there is very polluted. It's very polluted with E. coli, so they constantly have chronic diarrhea, but also with heavy metals and other chemical poisoning. So the sinking of the land is caused by basically people pumping out water from underneath Jakarta, and also compaction of the soil in Jakarta, with the concrete jungle, in other words. And then, to make things worse, there's encroaching seawater from the sea because of sea level rise caused by climate change. So there's a whole lot of complicated causes for the flooding in Jakarta, and these include things like poverty and rampant development, and also social inequality, the difference in the quality of the water that can be pumped up and so forth. So it is a very big and complicated problem. Next slide, please. So students would discover solutions to the flooding problem. I won't go through all these because it will take too long, but you can see that these are they're big problems, but they're also very big solutions, and they're not the sort of thing that students can really do a lot about, at least not quickly and in time for their next assignment sort of thing. Next slide, please. So doing this analysis, the students would understand the complexity of the problem, but they would also realise that it is not in their power to fix the problem. They can learn about it and understand the interrelated causes, but they cannot actually solve it themselves. If they live in Jakarta, they can do things in which they can participate. So participatory mapping with people who live along the rivers and canals, excursions to the places. They could contact relevant NGOs. They could conduct documentary research, of course, conduct interviews and so on to educate themselves and the people. But it is a huge problem and they're not going to be able to see any results quickly. Next slide, please. But it does provide an opportunity to connect the Sustainable Development Goals. They're not separate silos, they're interrelated. Nearly all of them are actually relevant to this problem of flooding in Jakarta. And this itself could be an exercise or an assignment. How is the problem of flooding in Jakarta related to the Sustainable Development Goals? And how can the solutions also help with the Sustainable Development Goals? Again, I won't go through these, but this is what the students would be working on to connect the problems, the solutions with the Sustainable Development Goals. Next slide, please. So from the students' simplistic understanding, that is blaming the victims, poor people are to blame for flooding in Jakarta, the project allows the students to understand the connections between the various aspects of the problem in Jakarta and link it to a huge range of diverse social issues and problems via the Sustainable Development Goals. So engaging with really challenging real-world problems opens the door to broader and deeper knowledge, to the reformation of ideas and beliefs, and to the adoption of more differentiated and complex understanding. Next slide, please. However, as I said earlier, a problem-based pedagogy, 100% problem-based pedagogy, I think is too much. It can be too negative for young people. It can be too slow in that they're not going to get quick results. And the problems tend to be too large, and it means that students might become dispirited because they can't do much about it. So I would suggest finding, at least sometimes finding, a local or smaller problem. Next slide, please. I think it's good to work from students' own interest. We know now that experiential approaches are more effective overall and promote skills such as problem identification, critical thinking, evaluating evidence and alternative ideas, and also tolerance for ambiguity. Things are not always very clear or simple. So a second project that I want to mention is a documentary film which was made by students in Denpasar in a public SMR. The film is called Lima Thagi, and it looked at the issue of waste in a riverside kampung in Denpasar. This is reported on in a PhD thesis by Martina Jaskolski, and that's in the bibliography at the end of my slideshow. In this project, the students had 12 weeks. They were in small groups, so they had a group of 10 students, and they chose the kampung, which many of them drove past on their way to school. And many of you in the audience, I'm sure, would know this kampung. And the students thought that this was a slum that was on the edge of on the river, and it was always clogged up with litter, and it looked dirty and disgusting to them. These are probably middle-class students. Anyway, for 12 weeks, they went into the kampung. They had the guidance of an NGO that had experience with documentary filmmaking, and they came to really know the inhabitants of the kampung and understand, first of all, they came to understand that these were not squatters, that the people lived there that they had a legal right to be there, that the Raja of Barung actually had allocated the land before independence. And in fact, many of the inhabitants of this kampong had lived there longer than the students had even lived in Denpasar themselves. And they came to understand that these were poor people, many from Madura, but they lacked government services. So they did not have a waste disposal. They only had one communal tap. And so they filmed women lining up at the tap to get their water and explained how it was. Well, in fact, they didn't explain. They got the interviewees to explain about their livelihoods and about people who were dependent on them. There was an elderly widow who found it difficult to go out of her kampong to make a living. They also, it was very positive. So there were kids playing in the river all the time and having great fun. So they didn't sort of portray the kampong dwellers as passive victims of poverty causing rubbish and clogging. It was a much more positive portrayal than that. So I thought it was actually a very effective way to go about teaching students about a whole range of the Sustainable Development Goals, which linked up things like poverty and clean water supply and sustainable cities and gender equity and education. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, it's easy for students, it's easy to encourage students to do green things like bringing a refillable drink bottle to school, to stop using plastic bags, to sort their rubbish, to make compost and turn off the TV when it's not in use and turn off the lights and so on. But these things are just routine everyday things which should become routine habits. But we actually want to do more than that. And that's why I think critical eco-pedagogy can be so effective. It really can engage students in a project in which they are invested in themselves. Next slide, please. So I think it's better to make a special project that the students are really invested in. As Teranzini wrote just recently, the higher the level of engagement, the greater the educational benefit. So the students design their own project and do their own project, and then they get assessed on it. And just as a sort of little end note, I want to suggest that you provide time and circumstances for reflection. We saw with both of those projects that the students were forced to rethink their own attitudes to people, in both cases actually poor people, and then sort of reform their own ideas. This can be done on an individual basis or in small group reflection, but it does require some self-examination and some just some critical thinking about one's own circumstances, I think. Next slide, please. Okay, just to summarise about critical eco-pedagogy, it embraces normative or value-laden questions. It does not attempt to be objective education about the environment. It's education for the environment. It's interdisciplinary, and we want to engage with people as individuals, but also society as a whole and the environment. It is concerned not only with knowledge, understanding, attitudes and values, but also with developing the agency of learners in participating and taking action on environmental issues. It can take place in formal, non-formal and informal education settings. It should have both a global and a local orientation. And I think the most important thing is that it entails deep, open-ended learning, systemic knowledge and holistic understanding, combined with space for creative autonomy and self-determination. Next slide, please. Right, well, I hope that this has been useful, both theoretically and practically for thinking about how we can educate in a transdisciplinary way about the Sustainable Development Goals, and particularly those goals which are concerned with human-environment interactions. Thank you, that's all.
To a big awareness of all the problem that we have now in Indonesia regarding the environment. And yeah, there is a problem again with a, I think, technical problem. Ladies and gentlemen, once again, yeah, there is an echoes in my voice. I hope it's not, doesn't distract you. We are going to move on with the second presentation now. Our second presenter here, we have Dr. Pil Desi Sriwahyuni. I've introduced her to you earlier, that she's a young academician from Undiksa, and today she's going to present another interesting topic entitled How to Leverage Student Employability Skills Through Strategic Industry. So, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Dr. Desi. Dr. Desi, time is yours.
Okay. Thank you, Professor Putu. Can you hear my voice?
Yes, we can hear you very clearly, Dr. Desi.
Thank you very much, Prof. Putu. May I start the presentation?
You have 40 minutes approximately for the presentation. Thank you.
Okay. I would like to share screen. Can you see the presentation on your screen?
Yes, we can.
Okay. Okay. Good morning, everyone. Thank you very much, Professor Putu has been introduced myself. And first of all, it is my pleasure and honor to be speaking in ASEAN Education Symposium. And I'm going to be speaking to you today about a TVET. Especially the topic in my presentation is how to leverage students' employability skills through strategic industry integration. Here are my outline in my presentation. The first one is a basically concept, scope, purposes of TVET. And the second one is a core competency of especially vocational high school teachers. And the third one is leverage students' employability skills. And the last about the recommendation. This is an important point of the recommendation because this is give information for the government, for the vocational high school and the society, especially for industry and the workplace. Okay, before I'm going to explain about the basically of TVET, I would like to give description about the structurization of education in Indonesia. Education in Indonesia falls under the responsibility of the Ministry of Education and Culture and the Ministry of Religious Affairs. The compulsory education is primary school takes 6 years, from 6 until 12 years old. The secondary education system in Indonesia is divided into junior and senior high school, each taking 3 years to complete. In senior high school, divided into general track and vocational track. So the students can choose general track or vocational track. In general track, over 3 majors, such as natural science, social science, and language. On the other hand, in vocational track, the students can choose based on their potential, their interests, such as business management, technical, which includes machinery and information technology, agriculture and forestry, and etc. Yeah, I would like to start about a basically concept definition and the purposes of TVET. All of you know about the TVET, or all of you can hear about a FET, TVET, TVA, OA, CTA. Yeah, the main goal of the vocational education is how to transfer the students, how to prepare the students with the skill good, with the workforce, with the job skills good. Yeah, vocational education is related with occupational competencies. TVET stands for Technical and Vocational Education and Training. So the TVET, the focus, there are 2 focus in TVET. The first one is education and the second one is training. Now, in this my presentation, I'm going to focus about how to improve the quality of vocational education, especially in senior secondary high school. In Indonesia, we call it vocational high school. I would like to description again about the main goal of the TVET to prepare for the knowledge, skills, attitude, and value relevance, their vocational expertise of students. So we call employability skills. But now the challenge is the concept of TVET is required to provide vocational high school graduates to enter in industry or workplace. But currently, TVET does not only focus on their achievement in industry or workplace, but more on career achievement after they dedicate themselves in industry or workplace, the career achievement and success that will result in their satisfaction. The career achievement starting by the students choose the career identity, career development, and the career achievement and success that will result in their satisfaction, welfare, happiness in this life, for the continuing their life. So nowadays, career education is crucial point in TVET. Talking about the TVET, the successful of implementation of vocational high school, strongly supported by the quality of vocational high school teachers. This is a part of my research. The core competencies of vocational high school teachers, there are 4 points. So I call the core competency of vocational high teachers PAPVET. The first one is the teacher should have pedagogy and andragogy competencies. And the second one, the teacher should have professional competency. And the third, the teacher should have vocational knowledge and skills. And the last, the teacher should have technological knowledge and skills. I would like to describe each core competencies in here. The first one is pedagogy, andragogy, knowledge and skills by Cheng 2005. Pedagogy and andragogy knowledge and skills divided into several subdomains. Pedagogy and andragogy knowledge and skills regarding with conducting teaching, learning, and practicing work in school and in industry or workplace. So we call on-the-job training. So this is the differences between teachers in general schools and vocational high school. And the core competencies number 2 is a professional competency. Professional competency is regarding with application of content, how do teachers develop oriented, connected, and integrated content with a contextual of industry or workplace. The teacher also should know how to recognize changing developments in world of work and relevance to teaching context. So the teachers in here as a motivator and should have a awareness and open-minded. The competency core number 3 is vocational. Vocational knowledge and skills related with technical skills. Not only students all, know about technical skills, but the teacher firstly know about technical skills, working knowledge, and job and career development counseling. And the last is technological competency and knowledge relating about how to use ICT for learning instruction, how to use ICT in conducting CPD or continuing professional development, how to use ICT for evaluation and assessment for students, and how to use ICT for build a communication or for make communication efficiently and effectively with industry, with workplace, and etc. Ladies and gentlemen, in your screen, you can see the identified competency needs. This is the phenomenon of vocational high school in Indonesia. The figure shows that vocational teachers should focus more how to improve vocational competency and professional competency aspect. For example, how to build a good networking, how to build a collaboration between industry, collaboration with workplace. And the second one, How to improve vocational knowledge and skills. Not only mastery in content, not only mastery in theory, but also the very important thing is how to practice, how to give a practical for the students, relating with vocational expertise that they choose. The third one is entrepreneurship. And the last is continuous self-development. Okay, I'm going to present the 3 knowledge and 3 goji. In vocational high school, the teacher should improve their competency about pedagogy aspect, andragogy aspect, and hutagogy aspect. In pedagogy aspect, the teachers focus on how to deliver the core content knowledge relating with vocational expertise, how to use ICT for helping the learning process. In andragogy aspect, the teachers should digging the meta knowledge, how to improve the creativity of students, how to improve the problem solving and communication. And hutagogy aspect is a humanistic knowledge. The students, after they finish studying, they can choose the job and they can choose the career, so they can live together among with the others. I would like to describe about mindset, skill set, and tool set. So I call in here is MST sets. This is a principle of a TVET. Let's start. Vocational teachers should giving redefinition about a vocational education in mindset. Reorientation about vocational education, assess vocational learning innovation in the era of digital transformation. The self-stability of vocational teachers innovates vocational education. In skill set, the teachers should know how to implement or conduct vocational learning innovation based on the industry demands. In the tool set, vocational teachers, how to find, select, implement method, technique, and models for conducting vocational education. So the impact of MST sets going to create minds-on, hands-on, and hearts-on to conducting learning process in school, I would like to continue about what the purposes, the purposes of vocational high school graduates. Vocational high school graduates should have employability skills. As I said before, this is the main goal of vocational education. How to create the students with employability skills so that they can enter to workplace or industry. Employability skills, explaining about the quality that the employer wants to job seeker. Employability skills, including knowledge, skills, attitude, and values. We call it cognitive and non-cognitive aspect. As I see in my presentation, the students will have certificate and competency certification. Certificate in here about a cognitive aspect, but competency certification about the skills, attitude, and values in the workplace. There are 4 employability skills. The first one is personal management skills. Second one is fundamental skills. The third one is teamwork skill, and the last higher order thinking skills. Vocational students should have about personal management skills. What is personal management skill? Personal management skills is related about positively thinking and manner, easy to adapt, responsibility with the other, responsibility with the work. Fundamental skills is related about communication skills, not only communication between teacher and students, but communication with industry, with another students in another school, relating information management skill, mathematics, and problem solving. In teamwork skills, the students should have skills about collaboration, build partnership, not only build a partnership, but only how to build networking, maintenance the partnership, and the important thing is enhancement the partnership. We call it mutually partnership. So ladies and gentlemen, this is the TVET challenges now. Challenges for vocational high school, how best to better prepare ready graduates from the industry. In Indonesia, vocational school address the concern and demands of highly complex labor skills requiring the workforce to be able to perform effectively and to provide job and career in alignment with the preferences of today's workforce. So to deal with this challenge, the relationship between external parties, or we call external learning, can direct the design of more applicable educational materials in addition to specific knowledge acquisition, enhanced skills and competencies development. Practice-based learning extends outside of solving problems to obtaining new knowledge and insight and improving essential analytical problem solving and utilization skills which lead to the new curriculum. This can be facilitated by the use of dynamic activities and tasks that have a workplace environment. The existence of vocational high school, how to give the balance between supply demand and between supply side and demand side. Vocational high school in Indonesia popular with SMK. SMK as a supply side and industry or workplace as a demand side. Our focus now on how to leverage vocational high school students' employability skill to achieve, enter workplace and or industry. The first one, vocational teacher should aware and open-minded in lifelong learning is compulsory. Vocational teacher must be a learner and ready to upgrade their knowledge and skills for new technology, new method for improving teacher quality. So vocational teachers should ready to learning, relearning, and unlearning. To achieve balance between supply side and demand side, We need collaborative and networking is a basic principle for getting link and match between supply side and demand side. Teacher competency must be strengthened by external learning, such as industry, workplace, and instructional agility with tailor-made with industry or workplace demands. So I propose in here vocational learning model for nowadays. There are two mediating variable in here, instructional agility and product innovation efficacy. How to leverage students' employability skill, of course, by external learning. So the vocational teacher should build a networking, build collaboration with industry and workplace. So if the teachers good in external learning can give a positive impact with a vocational high school performance, mediating by instructional agility and product innovation efficacy. There are two mediating variables in here in that model. The first one, external learning has a positive impact on vocational high school performance. I would like to describe about external learning. External learning can be described as knowledge of obtainment and development through cross-institutional learning through collaborative customer and industry problem solving. So the result from external learning is there are two results. The first one is tacit knowledge and the second one is the explicit knowledge. I give emphasis again. The result of the external learning, there are two results. Is the first one tacit knowledge and the first one is explicit knowledge. External learning occurs as new information arises from outside the organization and is then transmitted within the vocational high school. It is primarily due to the VHS ability to acquire, recognize, adapt, and leverage environmental knowledge. In external knowledge, we need a strong partnership with industry or workplace. So industry or workplace can provide a basis for transmitting tacit knowledge with the vocational school. External learning arises from industry or workplace in several ways, such as daily participation of industry, making a design curricula together, and enhancement of output quality. External learning also give a positively impact to product innovation efficacy. Product innovation involves people to acquire existing knowledge and to share that knowledge within the vocational schools. The knowledge acquired from outside, I mean from industry and workplace, to the vocational teachers, depending on the ability to absorb new ideas, to understand, assimilate, and apply new external knowledge for the purposes of vocational high school. So the innovation occurs when individuals share their knowledge with the vocational teachers, and new and common insight are derived by this shared knowledge. So external learning also give a positively impact to the instructional agility. Agile, the principle agile in education is teachers and students over administration and infrastructure, knowledge and cooperation over compliance and competition, and career development and marketability over syllabus and marks, and the last, mindset and learning skill over the competencies and degrees. The impact of the instructional agility for students is the students become lifelong learners who are self-directed, team-oriented, and individually resilient. The agile learning in vocational high school approaches have evidently encouraged the creation of social management and organizational skills in students in the highest level. So instructional agility in vocational high school is a competitive requirement of an organization going to rely on various skills to respond quickly and adapt to industry change about a job demands and the needs of customers, such as competence of graduates. I would like to give a resume about a strategic industry integration by EPI. The first one, external learning, as I said before. The second one is product innovation efficacy. And the third is instructional agility. This is the challenge of a vocational teachers now. How to improve, how to build the connection with industry and the workplace. And the challenge is how to absorb knowledge and skill from industry or workplace, not only absorb, but how to assimilate and how to apply, and the last, how to evolve the knowledge and skills to give for the students in vocational high schools. The emphasis on external learning is knowledge obtainment and development through cross-institutional learning through collaborative industry or workplace. And the key point in this networking and strategic partnership. How about in instructional agility? Instructional agility build a career development and marketability over syllabus and marks, mindset and learning skills over competencies in degrees. And the last, product innovation efficacy, how to make a new or significantly improve curricula in vocational high school, upgrade the content relating with vocational expertise subject, upgrade the teaching method, the efficacy of innovation such as curricular replacement being phased out. So the AP will give the positive impact for the performance of vocational high schools. So the recommendation in here, the first one is, build a strong partnership, collaboration with associates of industry or workplace can provide a basis for transmitting tacit knowledge and explicit knowledge. The second one, create product innovation efficacy, such as together with industry or workplace, make a design curricula. New model curriculum for vocational are those which present new or significantly improved quality of teaching, learning, and practicing in terms of vocational high school teacher capabilities. And the third is create an agility in learning to generate an efficient, low-cost, high-quality learning to produce the graduate of vocational high school with employability skills. So how to leverage students' employability skill? The first one, mastery. The teacher should master in core competency of vocational teachers. Mastery in external learning. Using MST sets, the teacher should have awareness open-minded with external learning, improve and optimality industrial work practice development. And the last is vocational competence test. Build a good vocational competence test with a good indicator, with a good measurement. So the students, after they finish their studying, they have two certificates: certificate cognitive authorization and certificate skills authorization. So this is the last my presentation. Thank you very much, Prof. Putu Artini.
Thank you, Dr. Desi. Sri Wahyuni, it's a very inspiring topic. So far, we have two topics which both are very inspiring, both are very relevant to the goals of the United Nations. We are going to have another interesting topic coming up with the third presenter. But before that, I would like to give the soft reminder about the participation and the souvenirs to be given away to 5 participants. In the chat box, I already saw a number of questions and comments. So ladies and gentlemen, and if you have any questions or comment, please don't forget to write down in the chat box. Ladies and gentlemen, okay, so we are going to move on now with the third presentations. We have another great keynote speaker, Professor Haruki Miyake. He's from Kitaki Yuzu University. I'm not sure whether I pronounce it right. Please forgive me, Professor Miyake. So he's specializing in the in education for sustainable development. And at present, he is a team leader in Kitaki Yuzu ESD Council, and then also Deputy Director, Food Bank, Kitaki Yuzu University. And the title of his presentation today is, I think it's implementation of education for sustainable development in Japan. Professor Miyake, it's your time. Thank you.
じゃあさ、もう教員はどこよ。どこや。Moderator, Professor Putu Artini, how are you?
Yeah, I'm
you
fine.
can listen to me.
Professor Miyake, how are you?
Oh, yeah. Thank you so much.
Yes, nice to
I'm
see
very
everybody.
sorry to join the conference.
Okay, so you have approximately 45 minutes for the
Okay.
presentation.
All right. Okay, thank you very much. Okay. Yeah. Today, I would like to give a presentation of the present ESD in Japan. Of course, the term of ESD means Education for Sustainable Development. Today, due to the time constraint, I would like to skip to explain the concept of ESD. Okay. So the content of this presentation, first, objective of this keynote speech. Second, history of ESD. Third, ESD in Japan. Fourth, ESD in Kitakyushu, Japan, which consists of Kitakyushu ESD Council, namely RCE Kitakyushu, and ESD for a food bank campaign. Last is conclusion. Yeah, the objective of this presentation, the first, understanding the background of ESD for 2030, or education for SDGs in terms of concept. Or second is to understand the case of ESD in Japan. And third is understand the case of Kitakyushu style ESD and NGO Food Bank's ESD. Okay, here I will see the history of ESD. As you know well, the concept of sustainable development has come up in the late 1980s. In 1990s, 92, United Nations Conference on Environment and Development held in Rio de Janeiro adopted Agenda 21. In 2002, a World Summit on Sustainable Development held in Johannesburg. UN General Assembly adopted resolution on decade of ESD. UNDESD started in 2005. In 2012, UN Conference on Sustainable Development, Rio Plus 20 was held. 2014 is the final year of the ESD. So the UNESCO World Conference on ESD was held in Aichi, Nagoya. After that, Sustainable Development Goals campaign started worldwide. Here, we must recognize the two trends to understand ESD. One is United Nations University Institute of Advanced Studies. Another is one from UNESCO. UNU, United Nations University, had an ESD program to set up platform for dialogue on ESD at the regional local level. So we call it RCE. A second task is more active commitment to higher education institutions by setting up of a ProsperNet. Another trend is UNESCO. It created a UNESCO associated school in the world. I'm not sure there are how many UNESCO associated school Indonesia have. They covered from primary school to high school level. UNESCO associated school has the support of the international understanding, peace, intercultural dialogue, sustainable development, and quality education in practice. New teaching and learning approaches based on UNESCO core values and priorities. Last is teaching and learning on capacity building, innovative teaching and participative learning. Here, I would like to explain more about RCE, a regional center of expertise for ESD. It is a platform to form a network of diverse partnership among educators, researchers, policymakers, youth, indigenous leaders throughout the public, private, and NGO sectors. RCEs aspire to achieve the goal of DESD by translating its global objectives into regional local level. Kitakyushu is one of RCs, so it has such tasks. So this map shows the location of RCs in RC in the world. So they are located worldwide. So perhaps, I mean, Indonesia has 2 or 3 RCs, Yogyakarta, East Kalimantan, and Bogor. Yeah. So the UNU, United Nations University, has another task of ProsperNet. This is to promote sustainability in postgraduate education and research network. It started in 2008. It counted by 40 members. This is a university list of ProsperNet. 3 universities in Indonesia in this list. Universitas Indonesia, Universitas Gadjah Mada, and Universitas Andalas. At the end of the DESD, UNESCO held 2 biggest conferences. One is Aichi Nagoya Conference, and another is Okayama Conference. Yeah, both are in Japan. Here, they declared to promote ESD by adopting global action programs on ESD. So this sheet explains about the global action programs from 2015 to 2019 to promote ESD. Furthermore, after UNDESD, a decade of ESD. Their priority action areas are first, advancing policy. Second, transforming learning and training environment. Third, building capacities of educators and trainers. Fourth, empower and mobilize the youth. Fifth, accelerate sustainable solutions at local level. MDGs, Mediterranean, Millennium Development Goals, were only developing countries for target. But the SDGs, the all countries, including developing countries. The important point of education or study is to tackle such a problem. So now I'm explaining about the ESD for 2030 or education for SDGs. So of course, SDGs have 70 goals. So all of the goals depend on the problems in each goal. So the education was study. The important point of education was study is to tackle such a problem with critical thinking, and last is incorporate with multi-stakeholders. So these are the very important concept points. So now we will look at the inside of the ESD in Japan. So I have mentioned the importance of role of United Nations Institute of Advanced Studies and UNESCO for promotion of ESD. So the UNESCO Japan Committee is working inside of Ministry of Education. So in 2008 and 2009, a guidance for education was amended to integrate ESD in educational program. So the, I mean, these were the Japanese version. But as shown here, there are various materials published on ESD. So the number of UNESCO associated schools is increasing. The number of 15 schools in 2005 changed to 1,120 in 2020 in Japan. While look at the number of 11,000 schools in 182 countries. Since 2014, when United Nations decade of ESD was over, we must understand how the shape of ESD has changed. I will show the 4 aspects. First is to set up ESD Resource Center of Japan. Second change is establishment of Japanese Society of ESD. This is an academic meeting. So, of course, I am also the one of the members. Unfortunately, the number has not increased due to its vagueness of concept. Third is the increase of RCA from 6 to 8 in Japan. Newly, RCE Central Hokkaido and RCE Omuta were set up. Fourth is the increase of UNESCO associated schools from 15 in 2005 to 1,120 in 2020. During the GAP campaign from 2015 to 2019, the Japanese government hosts main office of the SDGs promotion. Here, the vagueness of the sustainability disappeared and was substituted for 17 SDGs as a concrete objective. Sorry. SDGs Action Plan 2020 was issued through SDGs Promotion Roundtable Meeting. SDGs Future Cities and the areas were selected in 2018 and 2019 in order to achieve the various goals properly. Kitakyushu is one of the cities. At educational level, the word of SDGs was shown in 2020 new guideline of primary school and 2021 of junior high school. So here I will provide the case of Kitakyushu in terms of ESDs. So this map shows the location of the Kitakyushu city. Kitakyushu is located in the western part of Japan, near South Korea. Present Kitakyushu city has a nice and beautiful views in both urban area and natural areas. Kitakyushu is very famous for the city of museum, Toto Museum, Animation Museum, Museum of Nature and History, and Museum of Environment. There are many historical spots like Mojiko Harbor Retro Area and Kokura Castle. But 50 or 60 years ago, Kitakyushu was notorious for polluted cities. You can see the black colored smoke from factories and illegally constructed houses. So the Women's Association organized a movement called We Want Blue Sky. After all, a local government tried to make a pollution prevention agreement with many companies. Behind such an agreement, women not forget women's strong belief to protect our children and husband. They made a survey and 8 millimeter documentary film with much perseverance. We recognize that their spirit and action is the DNA of Kitakyushu style ESD. Through the dredging sludge in Dokai Bay and setting up of the instrument to get rid of soot, pollution level of water and air was improved. So then you can compare the two photos to understand how Kitakyushu regained blue sea and blue skies. Now we come to introduce the case of ESD in Kitakyushu. So the Kitakyushu ESD Council is the center of ESD in Kitakyushu. In 2006, a vision was made for the most important. The vision of RC Kitakyushu is that we aim to promote individual empowerment toward achieving ecopolis in the world and building a fair and suitable society. We also create our original style of ESD, engaging diverse methods of education and activities for building a sustainable society and introduce it both in Japan and internationally. The Kitakyushu ESD Council was set up in December 2006, and a new organizational chart was made in 2017 after ending of United Nations decade of ESD. A change is seen that the student of ESD promoting class, faculty of regional development, University of Kitakyushu, joined to lead the Tsuki-ichi no Kai, namely the meeting held once a month to meet and chat among stakeholders. So back into history, these photos, the donation ceremony in charity concert for victims of Tohoku earthquake disaster in 2011. So this is a photo of 2014 United Nations Decade of ESD closing conference in Kyushu, Japan. So the RC Kitakyushu consists of 82 bodies. So this is a new organizational structure with general meeting, executive body, steering committee, and 5 project team. So the main ESD organizations are follows. Kitakyushu ESD Council, ESD section of Kitakyushu local government. This is a very rare, you know. The local government has, ESD section. I think the few local government has a ESD section, but the other local government has no ESD section. Yeah, UNESCO Associated Schools and the University of Kitakyushu. So these are the main ESD organizations in Kitakyushu. So I would like to explain about each project team of Kitakyushu ESD Council. First is branding project team. It issued the ESD newsletters. So the next is human resource development project team. Many directors of civic centers joined to this team to discuss the method of promoting ESD in their civic centers. So the event project team is trying to participating in many big events to show the effort of RC Kitakyushu. So this photo is one of the event project team's activities. Small girls enjoying to make a message card. Here is a project team to strengthen stakeholders. Kitakyushu ESD Council consists of 82 bodies, as I said earlier. Mostly the members of each body don't know others. So this project team tried to make a chance to gather together. Facilitators and planners are university student of University of Kitakyushu. So these photos show the many chances of gathering of stakeholders, including barbecue with food produced locally and eco lecture to the primary school pupils. Research survey and international exchange project team. So I'm a leader of this team. This team is to conduct a survey on recognition of ESD in Kitakyushu among the Kitakyushu citizens. Another survey is on work and life balance of workers in companies. Producing ESD materials about Osechi, namely New Year celebration dishes in terms of traditional wisdom. Last is international exchange with RCs of South Korea. So these are the photos of ESD recognition survey in front of the Kokura station. So apart from the daily life activity of each project team, we have joint and collaborate project with local society, NGO, and universities. So we, a member of the Kitakyushu ESD Council, cannot forget the existence of the two women. One is Katae Terasaka. She was the founder of Kitakyushu ESD Council. She was the first principal of junior high school in western part of Japan. Another is Yoshiko Misumi. She was also a joint founder. She leaded the women to expand the word of work and life balance. So their strong spirit will exist in our mind forever. But unfortunately, 2 years ago, both of them died. We have much linkage with domestic bodies like ESD promotion support centers, ESD Japan, and RCs in Asia and the world. So we made a YouTube program. If you have much time and interest, please look at this. So this year, ESD Center was closed up to July, but recently it opened. So under COVID-19, we started one workshop called Library Strategy for SDGs Books. Members selected books related to SDGs and put on the bookshelves. The workshop consists of 3 activities, including photo language, and a favorite book introduction with SDGs glasses. So all the participants are wearing SDGs glasses. So at present, we are making, this time we use the picture book. After reading a favorite book, he or she must tell the brief story of that book and selected that reason. So at present, we are making a third action plan. Must be responsible action plan. I'm giving a presentation from the inside of the food bank. Yeah, food bank building. So this house is very old, but we are working here. So the food bank campaign consists of education, environment, and social welfare. Food Bank Kitakyushu Live again is a member of Kitakyushu ESD Council. So at first, we'd like to tell you how the number of the food bank is increasing. This graph shows the rapid increase rate from 2005 to 2015. In the background of it, the poverty has become a serious problem in Japan. This is the circle of poverty. Once parents are under the poverty line, their child or children cannot get proper chance of education. It leads to children's low academic skilled career. Therefore, he or she works under the unsatisfactory working condition. So this graph shows the relative poverty rate of the single parent of world countries. So Japan is ranked as the biggest, highest. It counts 52%, followed by the USA and Australia. So these graphs show the relative poverty rate and poverty rate of the children. Both are almost in the same trend. In Japan, 1/7 is under relative poverty line. I'm not sure whether you can believe this data or not, most of the, Indonesian people, the Japan is the richest country, but reality of this one, 1/7 of the population are under the relative poverty line. Okay, so everyone is possible to get under the poverty line. For example, a family member dies due to disaster or diseases. One parent must look for job. Working condition is so bad, while he or she must take care of children. Hardworking in unsatisfactory conditions while taking care of children leads to mental and physical diseases. Therefore, the role of food bank is very important to cut the poverty circles. Food Bank Kitakyushu has various services like food bank, family support, and safety net of food is also significant. The tasks are joined to SDGs, goals number 1, number 3, and number 4, and number 12, and number 16. A work of a food bank is to collect bread and food from factories and the supermarket. Sometimes food drive campaigns being done. Kitakyushu Food Bank Life Again start food drive twice a year. My students also help to that campaign by opening a food drive shop inside of university main building. So according to this statistic, in 2017, 6.12 million tons of food were target of loss or thrown away. 2.82 million, 40%, 46% of the food came from houses, while 3.28 million tons of food waste came from the factories and supermarkets. So now I would like to safety net of food. So after the COVID-19 gives a negative impact of economy, people's income decreased. So the Life Again started food pantry, food box with the various foods distributed in a sensitive condition. 400 cars came to receive food. This working was reported in TV news programs. So Kyushu is prone to be attacked by disaster. This year, heavy rain has damaged people's daily life. So the Life Again often delivered food for emergency call. The family support working children's restaurant, kids club, enjoying themselves in the village areas. So in case of the children's restaurant, dishes with much nutrition are provided to children. So the children who are not taken good care of are very happy and can make friendship with others. But due to COVID-19, all of the children's restaurants are closed in Japan. Life Again started to distribute lunchbox to children. According to the network of children's restaurant, a result of survey shows Tokyo has 488 children's restaurants and Osaka has 336. The number of children's restaurants is increasing so rapidly. So this is a chart of my tutorial class of my university. As the practice-based learning, we have 3 projects under ESD for 2030 or education for SDGs. We have a linkage with Kitakyushu ESD councils. Students of my class are willing to study ESD for 2030 or education for SDGs through my project. They commit to at least 3 projects, such as study tour to South Korea, Indonesia, Ainoshima Island project, and food loss reduction. Student food reduction student project. But due to the COVID-19, only food loss reduction student project can be permitted by university. So they started emergent tomatoes distribution services. Although time was so short, many students who reduced their income came within a short period. A total number of students to come was 29. Distributed tomatoes were 180, and distributed packed rice were 160. My student told that through this activity, he recognized the severity of COVID-19 on the student daily life. generated many victims. Another female student told that although this event has suddenly started through the expansion of the information by SNS, this activity was in success. And now my students are studying ESD in the framework of the education for 2030 in terms of practice and theory. A project that students are related to is only food bank to work because of the COVID-19. They are making activities for food loss reduction, considering how they can expand food bank campaign. After the COVID-19, students will visit school and civic centers to study about food bank together. This study may lead to rise of students' creativity and action power much higher. Yeah, I would like to conclude my presentation. ESD has expanded worldwide through United Nations decades of ESD. In Japan, RCE has increased by help of Ministry Environment, while Ministry of Education in Japan led to the increase of UNESCO-associated schools to promote ESD. In Kitakyushu ESD Council took a leading role of promoting ESD with many stakeholders, project or campaign. I explained about the case of Food Bank Kitakyushu Life Again. My students hold a food pantry with support by Food Bank Kitakyushu, as well as Kitakyushu ESD Council. Through practice and the COVID-19, students inclined to get various skills. In this way, the Kitakyushu has multi-stakeholders from primary school level to the aged person. Okay. Yeah, thank you for listening to my keynote speech. So I've finished my keynote speech.
Thank you very much, Professor Miyake. Ladies and gentlemen, that's our third presentation of our keynote. So please join me to give a round big applause to our three amazing speakers. Thank you very much. Thank you. Yeah, we have a very good combination of topic today. Very, very good combination of topic because we have from Professor Lin, who give us a big awareness about the problem of environment in Indonesia. And there is a very big gap between, actually the gap, large gap between environmental awareness and knowledge. I just want to give you a little story from my experience, just to show how even little children in another country have a big awareness of the environment. For example, a long time ago, when I was a student in Australia, we were having a get-together with other Indonesian students in a park, in a public park. And as usual, when we get together, we just have a big laugh, we have a chit-chat, and we produce a big noises around the park. And just a little girl came approaching us and say, "Excuse me, can you please lower down the noise? Because the noise may make the bird upset." Wow, this is what a story. So since that moment, I already have a think in myself how about what do our children in Indonesia know about environment? Do we have that in our curriculum? And Professor Lin today have made us aware of the big need. It's a real big need to link between the problem, the bad news, and the good news. There are some bad news have been presented about the issue of environment in Indonesia. And the good news is to do with education system, with, centralized, so it's easier to control. And then the fact that our students are happy at school. Yeah, our students also will listen to teacher, will need to be involved actually, because we have very disciplined students in some ways, and also there is a big need of the interdisciplinary subject at schools. The second presentation from Dr. Daisy. This is about vocational school in Indonesia, also with problem. Actually, vocational education in Indonesia now become the, let me say, the apple of the eye of the government, because this is really a breakthrough if we want to overcome the big unemployment rate in Indonesia. Because vocational education is the answer to the questions of giving the ready-to-use skill for our young generations. And Dr. Daisy has already suggested and recommend some interesting points, for example, how to relate between schools and the industries. The next one, our last but not least keynotes, also have given us and open up our eyes about the implementation of education for sustainable development program in Japan. And what is amazing about Japan here, there is a big number of UNESCO associated schools in the country. And out of 11,000 schools all over the world, 1,120 schools are in Japan. I just wonder whether we have schools like that in Indonesia. But what is very obvious here that in Indonesia, something needs to be done. We have the environment education for sure, but it's part of a subject. And according to Professor Lin, maybe there is a misconception in environmental education in our country. So there is a need to get it done right, and there is need to get it done soon. Otherwise, the problem will grow very, uncontrollable. Well, ladies and gentlemen, so happy to host this. We have to move on now with the question and answer session. We have 45 minutes actually for this session, but we still have, in my watch, I still have 37 minutes. And in the chat box, I already saw a number of questions from the participants. Just be advised that the participation is recorded. And also, as I mentioned earlier, there will be 5 souvenirs to give away. So they are going to be delivered to your door, right to your door. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to go on with the questions now. I have the first questions here from Professor Anna Permanasari. And the question is addressed to Professor Lynn Parker. We realize Indonesia still faces on the problem in environmental issues. In fact, that the policy makers in Indonesia come from economic management, law, and finance. And the question is, do you think that environmental education should be a part of curriculum in university as well as in school level, not only in education field, but also in non-education? So that's the first question. I'm going to go on with two other questions. The other question is from Nina Urmila. I include environmental education in my own subject, ilmu fikih. There is a theme of fikih lingkungan to educate students to protect environment with religious support base. And the questions here is, can the way of teaching in Indonesia be generalized? Considering that Indonesia is diverse in ethnicity, culture, nature, etc. Thank you. So that's the second question. And the third question, this is addressed to Dr. Pil Desi Sriwahyuni. And this is from Elisa Kusuma Laksanawati from Universitas Muhammadiyah Tangerang. Greeting to Dr. Desi. Thank you for the explanation. I need confidence whether a lecturer with no experience in industry or manufacturer can be a good teacher for vocational students. Thank you. So first of all, to question for Professor Lynn Parker. Please, Ibu Lynn.
Thank you, Putu, and thank you to the audience members who sent questions. So I'll just follow your lead, Putu, and answer a question from Anna. We realize Indonesia still faces the problem of environmental issues, etc. So the question is, do you think that environmental education should be a part of the curriculum in university as well as at school level? And then for education as well as non-education subjects? Well, yes, I do. I think that the nature of the Sustainable Development Goals and the nature of the environmental problems they're so urgent and they're so comprehensive. They cover so many fields that I think that whatever we want to call it, education for sustainable development or education for sustainability or environmental education, I don't care that much what we call it, but I do think that we should be teaching about it, yes, definitely at university. And in my presentation, when I was suggesting critical eco-pedagogy, it's actually a pedagogy that's very much suited to university teaching because it's very open-ended. In university, there's not such a strict curriculum as there is in schools. And you can definitely get students to do kind of problem-based projects. They can be locally relevant. So it really lends itself very well to the sort of education about the environment that I would urge people to make. It's really well suited to education as well, but also other non-education fields. So, I mean, if you're teaching humanities, if you're teaching English literature, or you're teaching Indonesian literature, or you're teaching Balinese literature, I would hope that we can incorporate the environment into all of these fields, and then into the more technical fields as well, such as engineering or you know, obviously the more sort of science-based ones, which already are about the education, but not necessarily about the environment, but not necessarily for the environment. So that's the answer for Anna. And then there was a question from Elisa, I think. Can we talk about education? Can we talk about teaching in general in Indonesia? Look, I agree that Indonesia is a hugely diverse country in ecologically, but also culturally and socially. So it is very difficult to make generalizations about teaching in Indonesia. But I've been in schools since 1980 in Indonesia, so I do have a fairly good sense of what's going on at school level, in schools, in classrooms. And I can make some general statements about Indonesian schools in general. I mean, first of all, you have a national curriculum. So even though you have, 2 hours a week or something for local content, there's basically, a very centralized curriculum. To me, it would be ideal if we could make that education more locally sensitive. Sensitive to the school, that each school has its own catchment area of students from different socioeconomic classes, for instance, different environmental context, and the schools themselves have their own policies, visions, and so on. So you would expect that education that was locally relevant would be locally different from one area to another. I also think that in Indonesia, there's not much emphasis put on teachers. Teachers are not all the same. They all bring different capacities and experience. Their social identity is different. Female teachers, young teachers, they're different to older male teachers. I think there's a huge improvement in teaching over the decades in Indonesia, and I really see the young ones as qualitatively very different to older teachers, generally speaking. Things are moving. But as I was beginning my talk, I mentioned that I think that the sustainability discourse and the SDGs can feel very distant to students. They're really big, and it's important that we make teaching about these things relevant to the students themselves, to their actual real world lives, and responsive to local problems. So ideally, yes, that education would become much more locally relevant and locally based, I think. Might be enough for me. Maybe we should move on to the next.
Yes, thank you, Professor.
Yeah.
Thank you for the response and explanation. We go on to Daisy, Dr. Daisy, please, with the questions from Elisa Kusuma Laksanawati. Time is yours.
Thank you, Professor Putu. And thank you for the Ibu Elisa for the questions. She asked about confidence, whether a lecturer with no experience in industry or manufacture can be a good teacher of vocational students. Yeah, of course. Of course. Talking about the competence of vocational teachers is not only related to industrial experience, but also there is another competency which is important also, such as in pedagogy, andragogy aspect, the vocational teacher should focus about how to learn students' characteristic, how to optimize their interests, optimality for the students. The teacher should also master in learning principle in vocational education. The emphasis in here is how to practice hands-on experience. And another aspect is how to build a good communication with students, how to understand their feeling, their wants to learn in vocational high school. So the competence of vocational teacher is not only about industrial experiences, because vocational teachers, not only vocational teachers, all teachers have the same opportunity to always improve quality through CPD, continuing professionalism development. So in that time, vocational teachers are teachers who are ready to become lifelong learners. But the prerequisite is vocational teacher is to have the awareness to always conduct learning, relearning, and unlearning related to vocational expertise subject they have chosen. Learning is the meaning always have a strong desire to learn a new things,
about new application, new methods regarding with the job procedural relevance with the industry or workplace, new methods of learning. Relearning meanings always have the diligence and toughness to improve the knowledge and skills they already have. And unlearning meaning the opposite of innovation efficacy. No longer use outdated method or job procedural of teaching in practicing does not deliver material that is no longer in accordance with industry needs. So vocational high school do not only focus on delivering material, but must focus on how to create a learning environment based on industry setting. To improve technical skills, you can take advantage of existing resources in the industry or workplace, make a good partnership with industry, make a strong collaboration with industry. Something that can be done or improve industrial working practice or on the job training management. Yes, I think enough, Prof. Putu.
Thank you, Dr. Daisy. Yes, I hope that's answered the questions from Ibu Elisa. Yeah. There is another question here come up for Professor Lynn Parker. Do you apply or use critical eco-pedagogy also in Australia? In what level of education? For how long this has been practiced? Could you give us example? Because the example you mentioned was about flooding in Jakarta, not in Australian context. Thank you.
Thank you, Putu. Thank you for the question, Nina. It's funny, I try and give examples about Indonesia and you ask me for Australian examples. I have to admit that critical eco-pedagogy is not well known yet in Australia. And I haven't myself used it in Australia, although I'm not really doing any teaching, undergraduate teaching these days anyway. However, I know of a primary school teacher, Elaine, who she has a PhD in environmental education, so she kind of knows about all these things. And she has an appointment at a primary school, and this is in Perth, in the city of Perth. And it's a school that has a lot of migrant students who are sort of lower socioeconomic groups. And the school does have a strong environmental section in it. But anyway, she decided that she would talk with both parents actually as well as students. And they decided together that they should have a school garden. And these are quite common in Australian schools now, so vegetable gardens usually. And it was good because it had the parents involved as well. And then they used the produce from the garden in school breakfasts, I think it was, rather than lunches. But anyway, giving healthy food to the children at school. They had some fruit trees as well, I remember. So the problem really was they thought that children were not getting good breakfast before they came to school. And so that's right. And they kept some chickens as well. So they were able to, they must have had a stove at the school and they did cooking lessons using healthy food. So they sort of made it into a green project, but also, a nutrition project and, giving students life skills as well. And it was, I think, very successful until, so we have long summer holidays here, and in summer in Perth, it's very, very hot, really, really hot. And the teacher, Elaine, knew what was going to happen over the long summer holiday because nobody had thought about the need to keep water in the garden. They I think, provided for the chooks, for the chickens, but they did not they failed to plan to water the garden. So when the students returned to school in the new school year, the garden had died, and the students were devastated. But it was a really good lesson for them to learn that the teacher, she could have gone to school and kept watering the garden, but she didn't want to do that. She wanted to teach the students sort of the real world skills of, okay, so if you've got a garden, you have to look after it all the time, or it will not continue to produce. At least that's the case in Perth. It might continue to produce somewhere like Indonesia, where it's a tropical climate and lots of rain. But in Perth, it's really dry and hot over summer. So the local conditions meant that the students learnt from experience that their green project was not going to succeed unless they were responsible citizens and kept watering their gardens and tending them over the long summer break. Okay, so that probably answers the question. It's not much known in Australia, no.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Ibu Lin. We still have a number of questions. I just quickly move to a question for Professor Miyake. There are two questions here. The first one is from Iwan Swadesi. He said, food bank is very good initiative. How the campaign gets supported from business and community? Is this initiative sustainable? That's the first question, Professor Miyake. And there is another question from Nana Triana Sari. What is the role of Japanese government in promoting ESD? Can it be developed in Indonesia, do you think? Oh, this is another question, sorry. This is another question from Eliza. And the question was, what is practiced now in Japan, do you think be implemented or developed in Indonesia? So there are three questions for Professor Miyake. Time is yours, Professor Miyake.
Okay, could you repeat again about the first question?
Okay, I'm going to start with the first question from Iwan Swadesi. Food bank is very good initiative.
Yeah.
How the campaign gets supported from business and community? So maybe just one by one. So this is to ask how the support from the business and community for the food bank.
Okay, yeah, okay. As far as I know, I try to give answers. Okay, so today just we have a study tour of the food bank, so to take the high school student to at first to the Costco, Costco is a very famous and the biggest the size super wholesale market in USA. The worldwide, the Costco is located, So our food bank has a good relationship with the Costco. So every day the Costco is giving the food. Say just near the expired date, Yeah. So the Costco, such now the company is responsible for the social contribution. That's why based on the such social contributions, we have the good relationship with the company. So the, especially the, I mean, the SDGs, you know, the, I mean, the ESD has could not, I mean, cover the companies, you know. Yeah, but you know, the in this SDGs cover the company. That's why I mean there are so many the good relationship between the NGO and the company enterprise. You know, so the in case of Kitakyushu, we have I mean the SDGs circle. So the SDGs circle club. Yeah, so that club consists of the more than 300 bodies, you know. So in case of the Kitakyushu ESD Council, just the 80 bodies. So how the what the bigger and the participant the bodies belong to the such a SDGs crowds, you know. So most of the bodies coming from the business circles, you know. Yeah, that's why now the business circle. So in Japan, you know, the Toto is a very famous company. Toto factory and company is located in Kitakyushu. So the Toto is a big body of the SDGs club. So nowadays, the government and NGOs and citizens and the company. So we have the good, we could make the good relationship. Okay, so this is I'm not sure whether I can give the right answer or not. But the business circle, they are very nowadays they are very cooperative to the NGOs activities. Okay. Second question is the government role to increase expand promote ESD. So actually Japan is a host country to insist in the decade of ESD. The Japanese government are very much responsible for the ESD. So broadly speaking, the Ministry of Environment and Ministry of Education. So these, the two ministry has a much responsibility to promote ESD. So under the such a ministry, the school level, school say the promoting the ESD under the Ministry of Education. But especially environmental education, so the environmental education is promoted under the Ministry of the environment. So of course, the officials and the staff of the Ministry of both ministries are very working hard, you know, and also they are very cooperative to the citizens. So I think I'm not sure that if the Indonesia, the Indonesian government, the Ministry of Environment as well as Ministry of Education has some sympathy with the ESDs. So in Indonesia also you can introduce ESD by increasing the number of UNESCO associated schools, you know. But this is a personal opinion. I visited, Indonesia so many times. That's why at the time I visited Adiwiyata school, national level and the state level, provincial level, and city level. But Adiwiyata's school is, a good model to promote environment education. But ESD is not only, the ESD target is not only to the environment, but also in Kitakyushu, the work and balance, So the gender perspective also the important, Yeah, that's why the SDGs SD goals, they mostly the target for the ESD, yeah. So the third question, sorry, I forgot the third question. You can repeat?
Yes. I think you answered the three questions already. The last one is it possible to be developed in Indonesia?
Yeah, of course. Yeah. Yeah, of course, as far as I know, I look at the Indonesia, you have a possibility to introduce such a ESD, So in Indonesia, RCE, Regional Center of Expertise for ESD. So in Indonesia, you have the three RCs, especially the Jogjakarta is a very old one and has a much the experience, especially in Gajah Mada University. So you can get so many information from Gajah Mada University.
Thank you, Professor Miyake. I got this note here that, sorry, the question is for Prof. Lynn Parker. So the question is, is it possible to be developed in Indonesia?
No.
Yes. Could you please, Prof. Lynn Parker?
Possible to develop in Indonesia. What? ESD.
What do you think, Professor Lynn Parker? This is about the, can it be developed in Indonesia? Please explain. I'm sorry, I have to look at the question again.
Okay, can I give an answer in the other aspect? All right.
Please do, Professor Miyake. I'm still trying to look for other question in the chat.
Yeah, okay.
Because it's so small. I need to.
Just, can I give, my impression of the Indonesia, the community? Yeah, because,
Okay.
they are now in the urban area of Japan, so such in the small localities, the communities unification is broken up, But in Indonesia, you have still LTA and LA and gotong royong. This belief is still working, Yeah, that's why. While such a belief is working, you can have get a chance to develop the ESD.
Yeah, thank you, Professor Miyake. So, from Diana Roselin, yeah, this is, the question is, how about the implementation of curriculum during COVID-19? Maybe this is to do with the curriculum, which, yeah, whatever curriculum, yeah, this is, I don't know whether it's relevant. Maybe I skip these questions for now. Dear participant, ladies and gentlemen, if you still have questions, you can use the raise hand here. Raise hand, yeah, or you can just write your questions in the chat box. Yeah, I haven't seen your questions so far, but there are a number of comments. Yeah, this is another questions for Dr. Desi. This is actually the continuation of the previous questions. The question is there any suggestion about how to manage the curriculum that could catch up to the very dynamic competencies that the industry need, so that the output of education have update employability skill? This is from Dian Wulandari. Dr. Desi, could you follow up that questions, please? Can you please unmute, Dr. Desi? Oh, you can. Can some? Yes, please. Can the technician help to unmute the microphone? Yes, thank you.
Can you hear my voice, Prof. Putu?
Yes, perfect. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you for the questions, Ibu Dian Wulandari. Is it right, Prof. Putu?
Yes, from Dian Wulandari.
Okay. I will try to answer the question. Thank you for the question. Link and match. This is the kind of strategy to make a new model of curriculum. The applicative of link and match is between link, vocational high school and industry, and match is the relevance, industry and the school. With link and match, such as apprenticeship, on the job training between vocational high school and industry can conducting in several approach. For the first one, togetherness, receipt design curricula is made together. Curriculum is compiled together. Design about the present and future seasoning for the students. And the second one, conduct design planning together with industry and vocational high school. For example, teaching staff from campus, practitioners, industry come to the school and then give design planning together and give the new idea and give the new competence needs in industry. And the third, use together and recognize together. After make a curricula and use together the curricula and recognize the curricula. For example, students apprentice in industry and then on the job training. For example, another one, industrial working practice. And the fourth, recognize collectively, academic recognition and recognition of competence, giving a certification for the students. And the last one, enjoy together. The achievement of prosperity and happiness in the career. Students get the job and industry get the skilled workforce, well-skilled workforce. With the end of the apprenticeship program, it is hoped that they will immediately be able to take the certification exam for skills that have been obtained from the industry. With the competency certificate they have obtained, it will make it easier for students to get a job because they have received recognition for their skills. Yeah, I think it's enough, Prof. Putu.
Thank you, Dr. Daisy. And my watch has come to 12:44 minutes. Yeah, so it's just about time to finish the question and answer session. Just a very quick conclusion of what been discussed in our plenary session today. So if we look at our theme with the Asian Education Symposium this year, with the theme of enhancing the quality of transdisciplinary education for sustainable development goals, we can see that we have so many valuable information and also, valuable information for transdisciplinary, interdisciplinary research nowadays in relation to sustainable development goals and also education for sustainable development. So the issue of, for example, from Professor Lynn Parker, with the new ideas that probably need to be developed in Indonesia in relation to environmental education that can be part of integrated content of the subject that can be implemented through different kind of activities, such as, for example, project-based learning that has been mentioned by Professor Lynn Parker earlier. And it is very possible, not only possible, it should be done, I'm sure, because that will make the education close to the world. Just to connect the world and education that's probably lacking in terms of environmental educations. And from Dr. Daisy, this is also some model of education practice in vocational education that have been presented, which is also another issue that probably raise more research in the field. As I mentioned earlier, that vocational education has become a favorite things from the government to overcome the increasing number of unemployment. And from Professor Miyake, we have a very interesting example of the practice of effort done in the schools in Japan in relation to Sustainable Development Goals, and also education for sustainable development. That's really inspiring, and this is also can be followed up with research. So there are so valuable knowledge and also experience that we have today with this plenary session, and probably we can't thank enough the keynote speaker for their presentation today. So please, ladies and gentlemen and participants, another big round of applause for the three presenters. So this is the end of the plenary session. So I give the room back to the Master of Ceremony. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Prof. Artini. Thank you also to Professor Dr. Lynn Parker, Dr. Phil Desisriwahyuni, and Professor Hiroyuki Miyake for the insightful presentation and the sharing of the keynote. Would you all please remain in the Zoom room for the presentation of Certificate of Appreciation? Ladies and gentlemen, AES Secretariat has prepared Certificate of Appreciation to all keynote speakers. For that purpose, I'd like to invite the Director of Undiksa Postgraduate Program, Professor Dr. Igusti Putu Suharto, to present the certificate. And will be symbolically present to the moderator. Ladies and gentlemen, we are now approaching to the end of today's agenda. But before that, we would like to invite the committee's chair, Putu Indah Ramawati, MBs PhD, to give the closing statement.
Thank you very much for MC. Thank you very much all the participants for your active participation for our IS symposium today. I'm very grateful that you enjoy our session for from the morning until this afternoon. So we do hope that you will come again for our next session for tomorrow. And I would like to give you a brief introduction for tomorrow that we will start at 9 o'clock based on Bali time. So please set your alarm. And then we as a committee would like to thank you very much for all the participants for all the committee for this great success event. And finally, we would like to say apologize if we have many mistakes during this program. I think that's all what I can say. Thank you very much. Om Santi, Santi, Santi.
Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, this is the end of the opening ceremony. I'm thankful to all guests and participants. Before we end this, we would like to announce that all the presenters and participant certificate will be sent by email. Once again, we would like to announce that all the presenters and participant certificates will be sent by email. Thanks again, and we are looking forward to see you again in the consortium meeting, which will be started tomorrow at 9 a.m. Bali time. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Om Santi, 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 Om.
Santi.
Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, this is the end of the opening ceremony. In the consortium meeting, which will be started tomorrow at 9 a.m. Bali time. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Om Santi, 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 Om.